Hello and welcome to part 3 of Vue JS Beginners to Advanced Interview Questions and Answers series. In this series, we discuss important Vue JS interview questions and answers. So, let us start our session. So, let us start with our first question in this session. How can we create multiple apps within a single HTML page in Vue JS? You can create multiple Vue apps inside an HTML page using createApp method multiple times. Each of these apps will have its own data and methods that are defined inside the createApp method. Also, you can define which part of the HTML template is to be controlled by each of these apps using mount method on app instances. Each of these Vue apps works standalone, meaning there is no connection between them. An example code is shown to illustrate this. What is template of a Vue app? Template of the Vue app refers to the HTML part of the Vue app or Vue component. Template defines the HTML layout or structure of the user interface of the Vue app or Vue component. What is the ref attribute in Vue? The ref attribute is a Vue specific attribute. Ref is useful for specifying a direct reference to a specific DOM element or child component within the Vue template. It provides a way to interact with an HTML element or a component within the Vue app script. See the example code that illustrates the use of ref. What is the difference between vModel and the ref attribute in Vue? vModel is used on an input element to keep track of the user input on every keystroke. But sometimes it is not necessary if you want to fetch values from the DOM elements only when the value is required. In such situations, ref is useful. Ref attribute can be assigned on any HTML element, and any string identifier can be assigned as the ref attribute value. An example is shown below. Explain the virtual DOM concept in Vue. Vue need to update the DOM accordingly when one or more of the Vue data changes to reflect these changes in the user interface. But Vue does not update the entire DOM when any of the data changes that will affect the performance. Also, Vue will not compare the data changes with actual DOM to find out which parts of the page are to be updated, which is also not efficient. Rather, Vue uses virtual DOM to update the screen and reflect the changes in the data managed by Vue in the most efficient way. Virtual DOM is a virtual copy of the real DOM, which is managed entirely by JavaScript in memory. When data changes, Vue creates a new virtual DOM based on the new data and compares the new virtual DOM to the old virtual DOM, and only the differences between those two virtual DOMs are returned into the real DOM. Because the virtual DOMs are kept in memory, performing a comparison between them is more efficient than comparing with real DOM, which is rendered inside the browser. The diagram shows a rough idea how Vue uses virtual DOM to update the changes on the screen. What is the Vue app lifecycle. The Vue app lifecycle refers to a series of stages a Vue app or Vue component goes through, starting from its creation until its destruction. Specific functions known as lifecycle hooks can be called at any of these lifecycle stages that will allow developers to execute custom logic at any of these points. The main Vue component lifecycle phases are creation phase, mounting phase, updating phase, unmounting or destruction phase. This diagram illustrates the Vue app lifecycle. What are lifecycle hooks in Vue? Lifecycle hooks are specific functions that can be called at different stages of Vue app lifecycle. This will allow developers to execute custom logic at different stages in the component's lifecycle. Creation phase lifecycle hooks are before create and created. Before create is called before the app has been fully initialized. Created is called right after the app is initialized. At this point, Vue app is aware of its data properties and general configuration. Mounting phase lifecycle hooks are before mount and mounted. Before mount is called right before the component's template is compiled and rendered into the DOM. Mounted is called after the component has been mounted into the DOM. Updating phase lifecycle hooks are before update and updated. Before update is called when Vue reactive data changes and before the component re-renders the DOM to reflect the data changes. Updated is called after the component has re-rendered due to data changes and the DOM has been updated. Unmounting or destruction phase lifecycle hooks are before unmount and unmounted. Before unmount is called just before the component instance is unmounted and destroyed. Unmounted is called after the component instance has been completely unmounted and destroyed from the DOM. What is a Vue component? A component in Vue is a reusable, self-contained instance that contains a specific part of the user interface and its associated logic. So, developers can use components to break down a complex application into smaller, manageable, and reusable units. What is the scenario to use multiple Vue apps? You can use Vue JS to control multiple independent parts of HTML pages, or you can use it to build single page applications or SPAs. If you use Vue JS to control different independent parts of HTML pages, you will use multiple Vue apps. In this scenario, create multiple Vue apps by calling create app function more than once. What is Vue CLI? Vue CLI is a comprehensive system designed to help Vue.js development. Vue CLI is an NPM package that can be installed globally. It enables to scaffold new Vue.js projects easily using simple commands like Vue create. What is a .vue file? A .vue file is a special file format used in Vue.js framework to encapsulate the template, logic, and styling of a Vue component within a single file. .vue file format is also known as Vue Single File Component or SFC. because inside a .view file, the related parts of a component, for example HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, are kept together. It helps in building structured and maintainable applications. This in turn improves readability and organization. We will wind up this session here. I will see you in the next session.